Our track sponsors, CrazyLabs, we've got Rotem, Eldor coming in. Our superstar session, one of two, talking about Do Not Resuscitate, why hyper-casual game publishing managers are lifeguards, not undertakers. Hi, Rotem, how are you?
Hey, Sophia. Good to be here. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Good to have you here. Yeah, how are things your way of the world?
Well, like everyone, we've been ups and downs, in terms of COVID-19. We're just out of the second quarantine, so we're looking optimistic and
looking for the forward.
Sorry?
Looking forward to the future.
Yeah, sound like that. And in the company itself, everything's really going well. We're top charts now, and we'll speak about that today a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll give out a lot of tips to our developers and why we're doing what we're doing in order to help and not kill everyone's dreams.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, like I say, you are our first of two superstar sessions and our track sponsors. Thank you very much for that again. And yeah, I suppose I should leave it to you. But like I say, keep to the audience watching, keep talking in the chat, keep throwing your questions into the Q&A, and I'll be back at the end and we'll do some question and answers.
Cool. Sounds good.
Fantastic. I'll wait here until your slides are present, just to make sure everything's going okay, and then I'll disappear off into the background.
All right, let me share my screen.
It's coming through now, it seems. There we go. Give it a minute. It's loading. I think it's loading for you too. There we go. Perfect. Right. I'll disappear off and leave it to you.
All right. Sounds good. All right, guys. So first, thanks for joining us. These are tough times, of course, and we're doing the best we can to make the best out of this situation. Today, we'll talk a little bit about how we at CrazyLabs were not really undertakers, but we're here to help you. And we're starting off with two great gifts, in my opinion. So on the left, you can see one of the games that shaped my gaming childhood, and I'm guessing yours as well. And on the right, you can see Acrylic Nails, which I'm guessing you played for a little bit more than 5 minutes just to see what you're missing in your games. So to be honest, and if we're perfectly honest and speaking, I'd much rather create games like you see on your left, like Doom, like StarCraft, like games that shaped my gaming childhood and games that I still play with my friends. And I'd much rather do that than sit all day and watch videos of Acrylic Nails. But in the hyper-casual industry, we're publishing whatever works. And if simulation games are hot right now, and in the beginning of the year, ASMR games were hot right now, this is the thing that we'll be most interested in working in. And I'm reminding everyone every time that we speak that hyper-casual industry and publishing the industry is business and not a fantasy. And of course, everyone's fantasy is to work on games like Doom, but eventually we're working on what eventually works for us. So this connects me to what I'm going to speak today, and the main thing that we want to convey is that we as publishers, as people who are looking at it from a distant angle, if you say, so if you are developing the games, you're really motivated and into the game, and we're coming out of like a third party and looking at the game, we have a much more objective way of looking at the game, and we can make better judgment on when to push the game, help updating, iterating, and improving KPIs, or when it's time to say goodbye and kill the game, utilize your time in moving to the next project. A little bit about me. I'm working in the gaming industry for around 8 years, and it's been a real roller coaster. Starting working in hyper-casual games, it's really fast, really going really on high speed, and it's like any other competitive sport that I play, watching the top charts, seeing how am I getting there, how am I getting my developers to get to the top charts, and eventually, as I always say to everyone, eventually it's a business. We'll talk a little bit about CrazyLabs, the ecosystem of a hyper-casual, and we'll deep dive into some publishing tips that we have for you. And of course, I'll tell you a little bit about our latest success, which is Acrylic Nails. We also have time for Q&A, so feel free to type in your questions in the chat, and we'll try to make sure to answer most of them. So CrazyLabs is a top 3 publisher. We have over 3.5 billion downloads for our games and over 100 million monthly active users. We have offices in Tel Aviv, in Skopje, in Shanghai, Luoyang, Kiev. So if you're also searching for your next job, you might find it here with us. Apart from publishing games, we're also creating games. So we have 3 studios. The first one is the Hypercasual lab that creates hypercasual games like Neonon and Dentist. The other lab we have is a casual lab that creates casual games like Jumanji, Charlie's Angels, Super Stylist, and so on. And we have one other top secret lab that we can't really say what it's doing right now, but it might even find a cure for coronavirus. So stay tuned. As always, we have best case scenarios and worst case scenarios, and we'll start talking about the development of hyper-casual games. So I'm going to start with the best case scenario, which is more fun to look at. And let's say you find a good idea that you believe in and you really like it. You work on a cool video for CTR for, let's say, 1 or 2 weeks. You don't have to have a build. You can create a video using Unity or using After Effects. It doesn't matter. You test it and you get great results. Awesome. Now we can start working on the CPI build. Of course, just upload it to the store. 2-3 levels. You don't need to do much more than that. And usually CPI correlates with CTR. So if you have good enough CTR, CPI will follow. So let's say you get a good CPI, you start working on the actual game, around 30 minutes of gameplay to test day 1 retention, because we know if day 1 retention is there, eventually day 3 and day 7 will also follow, because we know how to make the game more interesting. So eventually you can create a game with just a few weeks and you will know if you're in the right direction or not. Some of the publishers will also pay you for these steps and cover some of your expenses from the get-go, like we do. What it does eventually is to minimize risks for you guys and allow your team to be creative instead of just working fast. The worst case scenario would be that you fail at some point of the funnel. So let's say you failed at the CTR test or the CPI test or even the retention test. So worst comes to worst, you spent 1 to 3 weeks creating the prototype in which level you failed, and it's fine. So you know you're in the wrong direction after 1 to 3 weeks, which is very short time, and you kill the game or consult, of course, with your publishing manager and move on. And just so you to remember, it's very, very hard to nail it with a great CTR in a video. We fail a lot as well in publishing, in the team itself, in the in-house team. Every team fails a lot before hitting a great CTR. And what we usually tell our developers and try to push them is first not to be afraid of failing. That's fine. Everyone fails a lot, no matter what they say. And we help them improve. We help our developers improve every time that they fail. We try to analyze what's wrong, what went wrong, what we can improve for next time or for this time. And that's why we're trying to show that the progress of each of our developers. So you start with a very, very bad video, and eventually, once you progress and after you tested 1, 2, 5 games, eventually you will succeed. So let's say in 8 weeks, you can test 4 or even 6 videos. And of course, with the right publisher, you might even cover up some of your expenses. So we'll dive into it now, and we'll show you 5 things that your game needs in order to succeed. Of course, if you follow these 5 tips, it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a top chart hit, but we will increase your chances significantly. This is actually my personal checklist whenever I get a new game to check. So we start with number 1. It's not about the trend, it's seeing and learning how big it is. We have a couple of examples of games based off of trends, of course. The most famous one is ASMR slicing, maybe tie-dye even. So we need to learn what people love and why it would be even better if it was a mobile game. If you check tie-dye or even soap cutting on YouTube, you will see videos with tens of millions of views. Creating a game based on this trend almost guarantees you a low CPI. You don't have to build a game on a trend. It's not like a necessity. There's so many games which are not based on a video trend, but if you do, think of how big it is before you start creating these videos. Number two, which is very important, you need to learn exactly what are the exact steps in the game that you're creating, whether it's based on a trend or is not based on a trend, and what is the step that people react to the most. I'm taking here an example of tie-dye, which is based on a trend, a real life trend, which was big in the 80s. Now it's coming back for some reason, and we jumped on this train. We took and sketched every step in the way in tie-dye in order to make it as real as possible, and of course fun to the user. So we started thinking about the controls and the mechanics of each of these steps, and we also wanted to see what people like exactly in these steps in order to make cool videos. So for example, in tie-dye, people want to see their creation. So they might even wait for the end of the video or the playable ad to see what came out in the end. And this is something that we learned using Facebook's analytics, and we saw that people actually stick through the whole video to see what comes out in the end. So think about how to turn a cool video into a game. And if you're doing it based on a trend, I will say the corniest sentence I could come up with, it's actually harder than it looks. It's not easy creating a game off of a trend, but if you do, you will enjoy a lot of high CTRs, low CPI, whatever you can get because of the marketability of this trend. Number three, as I said before, you don't have to create a game. You just need to check the video first. And it's very important that people know what they do or what the game is in the first 3 seconds of watching the video. There's the highest churn rate in the video ads is after 5 seconds when you can, of course. And if people don't interact with the video at the first 3 or 5 seconds of the game, of the video, that's it. You will never get these people again. It's also crucial that we don't use any user acquisition hacks or tricks. We do it a lot while scaling, of course, to reduce the CPI once the CPI goes very high. But when we're checking the video, we just want to check the video. We want to check the gameplay, and we want to check that people react well to the game itself, that people want to download and play the game. It relates to the next question, next point, which is the game success, which is on number 4. Eventually, data doesn't lie. We're checking the data and we're looking at it, and it's much better than saying, okay, I think this game won't work, or I think this game is a bonanza. Check it, test it. If the CTR is great, you're in the right direction. If it's not, then either you have to iterate or kill the game. Again, I'm saying don't use any manipulation on the data. Don't try to lower the CPI in some unorthodox way once you're testing the market pulse, because you want to check what happens eventually when you start scaling. So I wouldn't think about how we can manipulate the data, but I would think about how I can make the game better. Number 5, and it brings me back to the first slide with Doom and Acrylic Nails. It's a business. Think about it as not as fulfilling your indie game fantasy, because it might happen, but not in hypercasual. Hypercasual usually are free to play. They can be played by anyone, anywhere. They're short, they're satisfying, they have mass appeal, and they usually have one finger mechanic like we heard in the last session. People want to play it and they don't want to put much effort in being concentrated in the game. They can watch TV, they can talk to someone on the phone, they're walking on the street and they're playing hyper casual games. So it's really important that you adapt the game into the situation that your players are playing it. And of course, don't treat it like a fantasy, treat it like a business. You eventually want to make money off of publishing these games, and that's why we are here for, and that's why you are here for. Now let's look at it from a different angle. How these 4 tests that we had, soap cutting, ASMR slicing, tie-dye, and amaze, brought success to very talented studios all around the world in a very short time, and also demonstrate the opportunity in hyper-casual. So you can see 4 games with very low amount of people creating them. The biggest one was tie-dye, that 5 people worked on the game. Smallest one was Amaze, that only 2 people, 1 designer, 1 developer worked on the game. And you can see that it took them between 7 weeks and 12 weeks to reach $5 million revenue. That's something that you will never see in your indie game fantasies, of course. And that's why we're always saying that we consider this as a business. And you can also think about utilizing your time when you can spare 3 people, 1 game designer, 1 artist, 1 developer. It could be even in 2 people or even 1 person if he's super talented. And the manpower it takes you to get to a $5 million revenue. So it's all about the core, of course, and we can check. Sorry. There we go. And we can check the videos that we start testing. And this is on the left. It's the first video that we created on I Can Paint. And it's all about the core of the game. The core is very intuitive, and you can really see and understand what you're going to do after 2 seconds of watching this video. The core itself is very addictive. It's very satisfying, and eventually we can see it that even when we tested the game for CPI, the first test for CPI got us 37% day 1 retention. So we weren't testing day 1 retention at all. The game had only 1 level, and this is what you did. This was the game. There's no sophisticated UI, there's no levels, there's no buyers, coins, anything that is, of course, in the game right now. But when we started testing it, this is what it was, and it got us 37% in day 1 retention. Of course, when we started adding metagame, it jumped into 60% day 1 retention. So if it doesn't seem real to you or just too good to be true, let's talk about our latest success, which is Acrylic Nails. So it actually started from a pitch we had about Acrylic Nails. We had it for a long time, and we thought about it, that it could be very cool and drive great CPI. It's a trend that we see on TikTok. It's a trend that we see on Instagram. And it's something that, this crazy coronavirus time got one of our studios, which is Firescore, that while maintaining heavy live ops on soap cutting, which is still alive and still making a lot of money, they started creating this game, Acrylic Nails. And right now it's top chart since September, which is 2 months in the charts, and it's making a very nice effect on the industry and of course for CrazyLabs. And we can see also the difference between soap cutting as a game and Acrylic Nails as a game, in the meta game, in the polish level, in everything that the studio came to where it's at right now after only 1 year of creating hyper casual games. So when they started creating soap cutting, it was November last year. They failed a couple of tests and they hit an amazing trend with soap cutting. Now, soap cutting isn't that sophisticated of a game, but it showed, of course, great CPI and retention. And they evolved in creating many more tests and succeeded in July, late July, on the CTR test for Acrylic Nails. And you can see the difference and the progress that this studio had in the last year. So it started, of course, with a TikTok trend that we see a lot on TikTok. And yes, we use TikTok. And apart from making us feel old every time I open this app, I feel old, of course. And it's something that, will be always weird to me, this app, but I'm using it because I'm getting so many good ideas for gamification and for trends. So if you're not using TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or anything for ideation, you have to start today. And if you're taking one thing out of this presentation, is that you have to start social media, start using social media to get ideas from. So gamifying the trend was not easy, of course, and it's something that we had to watch a lot of videos of acrylic nails of how it's done. And of course, the biggest challenge is to detect what makes this video so viral. Is it the outcome? Is it the process? Is it the colors? Is this the amazing work that people do, and it will never be the same if you do it at home? It could be a lot of things, but eventually it's the freedom of creation for the users. So we needed to first make it very close to reality and to create the experience that the users get and the satisfaction that they're getting from watching these videos. I mean, it's one thing to find a trend to lean on, and it's okay to do it, but we also have to make it fun. Whether it's a simulation game or a narrative game or a puzzle or even an action game, you need the execution to be good, or else people won't play it. The timeline of Acrylic Nails was different than others hyper-casual games that we published because the CTR test was exceptionally well. So we decided to skip the CPI test and the retention test. We just went for an output test. And so we spent a long time with our UI experts, UX developers, monetization. We took the entire team of CrazyLabs, put it together with Firescore, and they together very quickly, working 24/7 on this game, launched it, and it was a huge success. As you can see, even when we launched the game where the best users should appear, we only got day one retention of 37% in iOS, but the very, very low CPI made up for it. And of course, the organic lift are still making up for it and allowing us to be profitable and to become top charts with a relatively low day one retention. So we decided to fully launch the game, even though that we knew that there's so much that we can add and so much that there's left to be done. So we started heavy live ops work, including amazing painting techniques, VIP levels, and we gave a lot more freedom of choice to our users in what to create and how to create their nails. In these simulation games, I think that the most important thing to do is to give your player choices, allow them to express their creativity. If they want to combine this color with that stencil or with this decoration, they should be allowed to do it. Whether we monetize it through a rewarded video or whether we monetize it by progression and showing them interstitials, they have to have freedom of choice. Because eventually, if you direct them to do one thing, they will get bored. And if they are not satisfied with the outcome, or if it's not the same outcome that they were hoping for once they started the level, the users will just not play that. So we keep showing progression to our users. We keep giving them the freedom of choice, and they have to keep discovering new things to keep them engaged. By the way, if you feel like you have a great team, but you're just not sure how to start, or if you have an amazing idea and you just don't know how to gamify it, you can try joining one of our hubs. We have one in India and one in Israel. We will open a few more very soon, so keep following on that. And our hubs are training the team. We're helping them, injecting all of the hyper casual knowledge we have into them, and they're like going some sort of a hyper casual boot camp, if you will. And if you didn't find a hub that is relevant to you or your location, you can always get in touch with myself or one of the other publishing managers for mentoring and coaching. They'll do whatever they can, of course, to help you publish your game. I think it's a good opportunity also to introduce you to our new Click dashboard. It's actually a great opportunity for you to sign up, check it, do everything self-served, upload your game, upload a video, test it. Of course, you don't have to have a lot of hassles on your end. You just upload a video, test it, get the results. So to sum it up, if you'd ask me what the most important thing I'd like to take from this talk, apart from using social media and social networks and TikTok especially for ideation, is to stop being afraid of failing, afraid of taking your first steps in hypercasual. Start small, build a small team, or hook up with some talents from your industry and start exploring. Once you start developing hypercasual games, you might just find yourself having the best winter you've ever had. And this goes to show, of course, with Acrylic Nails and a lot of other games that we published over the last year from studios that it's not their main business, hypercasual games or games at all. And they're just creating it because first it's fun to start exploring and you will have immediate results. Think about that, about working on a game for 7 days. That's it. 2-3 people working on a game for 7 days on a video, shooting it up there, checking the CTR and CPC, and already after a couple of hours, you know if you have a huge game on your hands or something you need to kill and redo. Sometimes bigger companies, smaller companies, they have dead weeks or dead hours in a day. And this is the greatest time and the greatest opportunity, especially in these times, to catch the next hyper-casual hit. And of course, the turnover and the breaking even point is so quick that in the same quarter, you will start gaining, of course, the revenues from this game. So guys, I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you stay safe. CrazyLabs, of course, is still accepting pitches, videos, games. So feel free to contact myself or any other publishing managers on the team. We are with you at these tough times.
Oh, thank you. That was a fascinating talk. Yeah, we're nearly at time, but I'm going to try and sneak in a few questions if that's okay.
Of course.
One that we had come in is, let me just find it. So Joel Johnson asked, what is the typical success rate in hyper-casual games that you look at in order to publish? For example, is it 1 in every 500 games or, you know?
Yeah, so it really, really depends. There's no like magic number that I can pull off and say, okay, it's one out of 50 games that we test, because there's a big funnel where you can fail the CTR test and you can fail the retention test. Higher quality studios and lower quality studios, the 2D game, 3D games, but it's going to be hard for me to say 1 out of 50 games succeed. But if you take a ballpark, it's something like that if you're an average developer.
Yeah. And another question we had is, what percentage does a publisher get from the sale price for hyper-casual game? I suppose, is it set or does it differ from game to game? I suppose some people might not know.
Yeah, so of course, it's a net revenue share for most of the publishers out there. It starts from 80% of the publisher, goes to 50% for some of us. We try to be as honest and fair as we can, because we do see this hyper-casual gaming industry and the publishing deal as part of mutual effort. And of course, we have the same responsibilities, and we have the same difficulties as the developers have. We're trying to be as fair as we can. Our revenue share is 60-40, and that's how we work.
Yeah, great. And one last question we've got in here, I think we can fit in, is from Joel again. When doing the acquisition tests, for example, during Acrylic Nails, was this significantly due to paid advertisement? Was the success significantly due to paid advertising or organic virality?
I don't think anyone can succeed these days only with organic traffic. I mean, these days passed when Flappy Bird passed away. I mean, everything right now in the market, maybe except for Among Us, is paid advertisement.
Yeah.
The greatest deal about Acrylic Nails is that first the CTRs were amazingly high, making the CPI very low. You saw it there. It's lower than 5 cents CPI US iOS. And there was a huge organic cliff. We also did a pre-registration. So we had millions of users coming up free because they pre-registered. They really liked the trend. But eventually we have to keep it up with paid advertisement, of course.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that's all the time we've got, unfortunately. But like I say, are you in the Discord by chance?
Of course.
Yeah, well, like, there we go then. Just once again to all the audience, if we didn't get a chance to ask you a question, then Rotem, you'll be in the audience. And we will have CrazyLabs back again at 11:20 when, when you guys, not yourself, but CrazyLabs will be back talking about hypercasual live ops. So obviously there'll be another chance to grab you guys as the day goes on.
Yeah, it's going to be a very fascinating one by Michal.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So thank you, Rotem. And yeah, that was brilliant. And like I say, if anyone wants to ask you any more questions, please grab you in the Discord.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.